Hey everybody, it's a snicker of magic. Today we're going to be reading Chapter 8. Remember, this book is by Natalie Lloyd. Eesh. Trying to get there, but I can't because I'm an idiot. That's 9. Here's 8. Okay. Shannon Bacon. Whoa, that's a weird name. Okay. Shannon Bacon, don't you cry for me. I came from down in Ducktown with a banjo on my knee. Day Grissom slapped the knee of his worn-out jeans as he sang. He kept his other hand squeezed tight around the big, fat steering wheel of the bus. Thank goodness Midnight Gulch was full of fog and rain, and even though the fog looked pretty blowing out of the mountains and over the roads, driving through that mess can make a person nervous, especially if you're being driven by a Grissom. Day's radio was broken, he said, so he decided to serenade us. His voice crackled as loud as old radio speakers when he sang, and I kinda liked the sound. I like how some people say it banjer instead of banjo. Jenna said, makes it sound more special. I pinched Jenna hard on the wrist. Ow, he said, and he pinched me hard right back. I thought maybe you were a ghost, I said. I figured that's maybe how you've been in business for 50 years. Oh yeah, I remember this now. He's in business for 50 years, definitely. John sighed. I can't explain stuff about Pumpernickel here on the bus. I'll tell you later. When later? Soon as we get off this bus later. Everybody sing, hollered Dade Grimson. Road of Midnight Gulch, then we sang along as the bus circled around the mountain roads of Midnight Gulch, went down into the valley, then past the sand-cut apartments toward downtown. The bus zoomed past the gallery that Aunt Chloe told me about. I squinted real close, trying to see magical pictures underneath all the layers of paint, but my eyes weren't tuned to pictures, only words, and the only words I saw on that wall were the ones somebody spray painted there. They trembled and shivered against the bricks. They didn't belong. They should get somebody repaint the gallery, John said. Then he saw there I was looking, but I didn't know if anybody in Midnight Gulch has the knack? Knack. Don't know what that spells, but it sounds like knack. Or knack. Anyways, my mama was the knack, I said, and I remembered the summer when she always had paint brushes in her pocket and paint freckles in her hair. I couldn't understand how somebody who liked to paint as much as Mama could just up and stop, but put the brushes away and quit completely. I wondered if she'd ever start again. I wondered if she ever wanted to. I sighed. She used to have the knack anyways. You worry about her a lot, don't you? I nodded, remembering that I what I'd seen last night. I'd waited up like always until I finally heard the soft click of Mama's key in the door lock. I rolled off the inflatable mattress and crawled to look down the hallway. Mama sat on the edge of Chloe's couch with her head braced between her hands. I held my breath, afraid she was crying, but I didn't hear any sobs, didn't see any tears. I didn't see any words either, but I'd never seen words floating near Mama. After a time, she stood up and walked to the window and leaned her forehead against the glass, and I knew somehow out there beneath the stars and shadows the road was calling out to her already. She was itching to go again, and we'd only been there a day. Before long, we'd load up the jalapeno and leave another town, never to return, just like the brother Threadbare. She'd always looked for a reason to leave. I swallowed, no matter how we go. Jonah nodded but didn't say anything. At first, I was afraid talking about Mama made him uncomfortable, but then I glanced over at him. I realized his forehead was crinkled again, like he was thinking up some tremendously great idea. Maybe that's why you have to do the duel. So much for great ideas. How you figure that? Maybe if your mama sees you competing in the talent show, sharing your words, if she sees how happy you are here in Midnight Gulch, then she'll want to stay for a while. I wish it was that easy at ground. Maybe it is, John said, and then he leveled me with one of his deep, dimpled grins, the kind that made me feel like butterflies were tap dancing inside my chest. If Jonah, I think she has a crush, probably, didn't grow up to be a professional do-gooder, he should be a politician, which, with a smile like that, he could convince anybody to do anything. Someday I might work up enough nerve to tell him about his marvelous smile, but not yet. Instead, I turned my red face towards the window and concentrated on the foggy mountains surrounding Midnight Gulch. I haven't been in this part of town. I told Jonah, Mama first said no when I asked if I could spend the afternoon with him, but then Aunt Chloe said she'd take Franny for the afternoon and they'd have a big time together, so there I was. You'll get to see plenty of the town today, Jonah said. We're one of the last stops. I'm taking you to meet interesting person number 1. He knows all about Pumpernickel. Jonah grinned even better. He has inside information about the Threadbare. How? I whispered. You'll find out, Jonah smiled. Tell me more about the way you see words. Can you poke them? Can you kick them? Can you kick at them? Can you hold them in your hand? Sort of, I laughed, but no more than you can hold a soap bubble in your hand. Words are pretty while they last, though. They never look the same. Sometimes words are blinky bright, firefly bright. Sometimes words are shadows. I collect them on my shoes if I ran out of room in the blue book. Show me, Jonah's green eyes sparkled. I pulled off my sneakers and hopped to heaven that my stripped purple sock didn't stink like a dead skunk. Jonah inspected the words I'd inked along my shoe. Sometimes words cluster together. They're cloudy. I pointed to the heel. Takes a while to pull the words apart and decide which ones I want to keep. Some words have thin wings when I see them. Others hum. They make an electric sound, like they'd light up if I plugged them in. The word that hum and buzz are the ones that can't stand to not be said, I figure. I pointed to the white strip over the toe of my shoe. Kaleidoscope. That one sparkled and it had a sound, popped like Coke fizz until I wrote it down. That's Aardwolf. That's Aardwolf. Jonah tapped the heel. It's a hyena that stayed up all night and eats termites. Excellent, he nodded. I already knew. Wait, what? It's hyenas that... That's Aardwolf. Jonah tapped the heel. It's a hyena that stays up all night and eats termites. Excellent, he nodded. Isn't that an aardvark or an anteater? I don't know. He nodded. Anyways, back to the story. He nodded. I already know that paradigm is. He traced his finger across the inky purple spikes of the letters. Paradigm was a fun word to collect. It copied along the ceiling of the pickled jalapeno over and over. Some words, but it spun out at least 100 different ways before it finally dissolved. Did this word dance when you found it? Jonah pointed to pirouette. Spin through the air, I said, and nodded. It reminded me of a purple ribbon. Jonah raised his eyebrow. Spindly? I saw it on a curious at the fair. I don't think it's a real word. So I gave it a meaning. Spindly means better than awesome. Did you see sailboat bopping along on the ocean? Nope. Vehicles and motorized things have words around them, but they never make much sense. They're fun to say, but not much for keeping. I saw sailboat in a rinky bend antique shop near Myrtle Beach. Hovering around a fake sailboat. One of those little bitty boats they keep in glass bottles, dreaming of what it could never be, I'd guess. What's that? Jonah asked. Needler, I said. That's what Aunt Chloe calls a person who won't mind their own business. Like when I try to eavesdrop on Chloe's conversations with Mama, she'll say, Felicity, stop needling in. Jonah nodded. My mom's a needler. That's mean. She wouldn't be offended. She'd say the same of herself. He said, her first job is stealing hair and fixing carburetors, but her favorite job is sorting out other people's business. Jonah and I both laugh. Will I meet your mom today? I asked. Probably not today, but definitely soon. Jonah split apart a granola bar wrapper. Crunch cluster cram. How many more pages do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I need to count these pages before I start recording next time. Anyways, those words shot out into the air first, but then he pulled the granola free and broke it in half to share with me. He gave me the bigger half. Felicity, can't you picture yourself at the duel, sharing your words? Just a little bit? Truth be told, I could picture it easy, and as I pictured it, my heart dropped somewhere in the vicinity of my belly bottom. I thought of standing on a stage with shaky hands and tingling ears and sweaty lips. I thought of how my words came out twisted when I tried to say them in front of all those people. My words were a mess to everybody but my family and Jonah. Uh-oh, Jonah said. You look like you're about to puke. I sighed. It's a possibility. Day, Jonah yelled towards the front. Pass back the barf bucket. Once the barf bucket made its way back to our seat, Jonah held it toward me. Okay, he said. Launch. And he turned his face away. I'm fine now, I said, and I smiled and spit off all my nervousness. I've never had a friend willing to catch vomit for me. Jonas smiled, relieved that he wouldn't have to be that friend either. He tucked the barf bucket under the seat and said, What's the word you see most often, Felicity? Lonely, I said. I see it all the time, mostly in school and in church and in malls and driving down the road. Always the places where the most people are. Isn't that weird? Probably not, he said. Probably not at all. Do you see a word close to me right now? I nodded, and I nearly laughed out loud again. It's a word I've never seen out and about before. Not on any other person ever. Splendiferous. That's your word. It's yellow with 6 legs and it's crawling up your arm. Splendiferous, huh? Jonah glanced down at his arm. Even though he couldn't see anything, I like that. Tell it to say for a while, okay? But when he said that last part, he looked right at me, at the freckles on my face and the laugh on my lips, and he said, in my stare, if this green eyes had been lasers, they would have zapped right through me. He smiled as he reached for my wrist, and I thought he might punch me again the way I'd punched him, but instead he grabbed my red pen and kept clipped to his newspaper, and he wrote that word, splendiferous, right on my hand in the messiest letters I'd ever seen. There, he smiled. That's the first word I ever collected. Keep it safe for me. I felt my face heat up, so I looked at my lap instead of his face. I realized I still held half of his granola bar. My hands were sticky, and my wrists were inky. My heart pounded out the happiest melody. Yes, I'd heard in a long time. Bus 5548 dropped Jonah and me off in front of a spiraled spiraled gate. The rain was only dripping by then. I think river of fog rolled around my ankles. Maybe it was the fog that made the mansion behind the gate look extra creepy. Or maybe I decided the house doesn't just look creepy. Maybe that house was so splendidly creepy. I shouldn't be walking toward it. I thought about pinching Jonah one more time to see if he was a ghost, but then I noticed something else. Jonah must have seen the sparkling surprise in my eyes because he said, "Decent size house, huh?" But I wasn't even looking at the house anymore. I saw a single word threading through the rusty gate, threadbare. Jonah wheeled up to the speaker situated on the gate and pushed a button. When the speaker buzzed, Jonah sat up tall in his wheelchair and yelled, "Pumpernickel!" The gate startled me when it swung open. I sure noticed the house then, all 3 stories of it. The mansion was made of pale gray stone. Maybe it was hard to tell because the stone didn't show much through all the ivy dripping down from the gabled rooftops. Red flowers bloomed bright as needle pricks out of all the green. Raindrops clung so tightly to the petals that every flower looked covered in diamond dust. Oliver owns Dr. Zook's ice cream company, Jonah explained. "People sure must love ice cream," I said. "It's not just the ice cream," Jonah said. "Oliver created a special formula that makes the ice cream stay cold for at least 24 hours, even if it isn't in the freezer." His invention revolutionized the world of frozen novelties. I pictured Oliver as a cantankerous old millionaire sitting in a dark office in the furthest corner of that expensive stone house. He'd probably be wearing a black suit. He'd probably have a pinched face and wiry glasses and a beard. Definitely a beard. He probably never looked up from his desk. Jonah's wheelchair made a steady zrrr as he led me down the foggy walkway to Oliver's mansion. The yard was bordered by fancy hedges trimmed into animal shapes. A bear, an elephant, an anteater, a lion. The tallest hedge so tall it could have been a tree was cut into the shape of a hot air balloon. He paused by 2 tall columns with stone gargoyles situated on top of them. Both gargoyles had a pair of sunglasses, positioned over their eyes. Beside the steps leading up to the porch, somebody built a sturdy-looking wheelchair ramp. Before we could get there, the front door squeaked open. An elderly lady stood in the doorway. She was plump, the way grannies sometimes are, pillowy and huggable looking. She kept her white hair tied back behind her head. In a poofy bun, she grinned at us and clapped her hands and ran down the ramp, squealing. "Should I be afraid?" I asked. Charlie Sue Huncock is Oliver's assistant. She gets excited over company. Charlie Sue ran at us full speed, both arms stretched out like she might take off and fly. Should I duck? But I didn't have time to duck. Instead, I oofed as Joa both. She smelled like coffee, expensive perfume. "Welcome to Midnight Gulch, Felicity Pickle," she hollered, pushing me back to take a good look at me. "Louse, Jonah," she said. "You were telling the truth. Felicity is plumb adorable. Plumb adorable?" My face burned bright red, prickly red. I'd never been called plumb adorable before. I didn't glance at Jonah to see if his face was prickly red too, but I had a feeling it wasn't. Jonah never seemed embarrassed over his words. Not that those were his words. I was certain Charlie Sue Huncock was elaborating to the 10,000 degree of elaboration. "Oliver said he'd meet you both in the bathroom," said Carly Sue. "He's been on the phone all day with some clients up north. They're wanting a shipment of blackberry." Some clients up north. They wanting a shipment of blackberry. Oh my gosh, I wish you guys could read it with me. Anyways. Sunrise and Oliver's been telling them no, sir, no way, all day long. You know how he feels about that one. That's his most popular flavor, Jonah told me, but Oliver won't let them sell it anymore. Besides, Midnight Gulch, why's that? I followed Jonah and Charlie Sue into Oliver's mansion, 'cause that stuff's got a little secret ingredient. Charlie Sue winked at Jonah. We call it magic. Oliver's bedroom. It's either barred room or bedroom. Was actually a library, a good library, a library where books looked worn out and well read and loved on. The library was 2 stories tall with a balcony that wrapped around the top level. The big window on the top floor was propped half open. A rebel beam of sunlight pushed through the clouds, shining through the rain beads stuck to the screen. and glass, and then that strung golden rain light shone warm and pretty over Oliver's book. I wondered if the sun had missed the books, had waited as long as it possibly could to shine over those spines again. I knew how that felt, so to love a story so much you didn't just want to read it, you wanted to feel it. And Jonah was right about Oliver's mansion being good for word collecting. I wasn't really participating in the duel, of course, but if I were, Oliver's house was the perfect place to collect. I saw them everywhere. Okay, this episode is getting way too long. I'm gonna do another episode on this page. On this chapter. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys all later. Well, you'll hear me later. Bye-bye.